Alright everyone, welcome back to another episode on my The Crew 2 Let's Play series, and in this video, we're taking a look at my Honda Civic. And it looks fairly normal, but what I've done to it is anything but normal. I've pretty much broken this car in terms of, well, tuning. It's not really a game bug, it's just the way the tuning works. So let me show you what's going on with this thing. As you can see, it's extremely bouncy, and it does stoppies whenever you brake. As you can see, fairly big ones too. Yeah, that's pretty insane to be honest. And anytime you corner, the thing like tries to go on its side. The wheels all spin like crazy because I have traction control turned off. As you can see, the thing pops a wheel even, and as a result of this, the suspension is actually completely messed up in terms of just how the physics reacts to the thing. Of course, it's also extremely drifty because the suspension is so soft. But basically, the game doesn't really know what to do with this car. Mainly because it's so used to the suspension being so stiff, and as you can see, the wheels are actually going through the ground partially because of how soft the suspension is. I'll show you off a little bit here as well. So, how does this work? Well, if anybody knows it, if you know anything about tuning, you know for a fact that, well, let's start off with the suspension tuning. In general, everything is set on the softest setting. That's why the car is so bouncy, because the springs are really soft, and yeah, the shocks are just kind of bouncing all over the place. The brake balance is specifically set to be on the front, so that when you brake, all of the weight is put on the front of the car. And since it's a front-engine car, and a front-wheel drive car as well, it does stoppies whenever you brake. Of course, the aero is set to the front as well, to put as much weight on the front of the car at the same time. So in the menu, as you can see, the car just bounces all over the place, which is pretty crazy. So, as a proof of concept, let me grab my Ford Raptor, and I'll show you that this can really work with any kind of car. So as you can see, fairly normal right now. As you can see, the car is already really soft, and it's got a very high ride height, so this works perfectly. So, let's get into tuning. Let me show you real quick with performance. I've done all the upgrades to this car except for suspension and tires. As soon as you put the suspension on, the thing becomes slammed, and well, it doesn't become soft anymore. Or, yeah. So, aero distribution. Put that all the way on the front with tuning. Tire grip and brake power, you don't have to touch. Brake balance, put that all the way to the front. Put all the suspension stuff to the lowest value. The camber to the lowest value, to have as much grip as possible, since making the suspension as soft as possible will reduce the grip quite a bit. And that's it. The thing has become a stoppie car now. And as you can see, the suspension is just bottoming out now because of how soft it is. And the problem with this thing is that it's actually... yeah. Oh wait, no, I don't need traction control on. What am I doing? I wanted ABS on. The brakes are locking up right now on this thing, so I need to turn ABS on. As you can see, this thing just wants to drift now. As you can see, this thing does stoppies as well. I don't know if this thing's actually all-wheel drive. In the menu it says it's all-wheel drive, but somehow I doubt that it's all-wheel drive. And now I'm slammed. At the front at least. And so yeah, that's basically it. The reason why you want most of your assists turned off, except for ABS, in certain cases, is just to prevent anything from wanting to, well, prevent you from doing the stoppies and so forth. I've actually tried it on the Silverado, that's why I bought this thing, thinking that there'd be a interesting effect with this thing, but since it's rear-wheel drive, it doesn't really have as much of an effect as, well, this thing. So, what about rally cars? Well, the effect is pretty interesting as well. This I don't have tuned, but this thing, as far as I remember, I had it tuned. No, I didn't, but When I was doing tests last night, I actually got this thing to be like more crazy wheelie car as well. So ABS stays off. Put the brake balance to the front. Soften everything up. Camber, max negative. And now, this thing should be extremely soft. As you can see, it's already really soft. So as you can see, it works with the raid cars as well, but considering their suspension bottoms out pretty easily, it doesn't really work. You have to go to a very high speed. To like 50 miles an hour. But as you can probably see, the rear suspension just bottoms out at any moment. So you can make jelly cars in this game, which is pretty crazy. Considering that you can't really do that in Forza, I guess that's kind of gives the crew a bit more of a interesting vibe, you know? Considering you can do whatever you want with the tuning. And Forza kind of limits you in terms of what you could do with the suspension. I remember back in the day, you could make jelly cars in Forza Motorsport, for instance, but then they kind of nerfed it out, basically, in later Forza. So, yeah, let me reset this thing back to default. So, I'll show you as a proof of concept that it works with rally cars as well. Since their suspension is actually really, really soft off the bat, this works even better with rally cars. But again, there's always going to be tuning limitations. So put everything on the softest settings. And I need to select it. As soon as we go into the menu and look at it, you see just how soft this thing is. It's pretty crazy. However, with this thing, it doesn't really work as well. Because before the suspension even bottoms out, the wheels actually start rubbing against the fenders. Which, yeah, kind of doesn't make it work very well. It feels fairly normal, actually. Even with this jelly suspension, until you start doing this. And it starts sliding around all over the place. And then you realize just how messed up this thing is. So yeah, this technically can work with any car. I mean, I did it with the Civic, as you saw, and it worked really well. So let's reset everything back to default, since I'm pretty much done with this video. I've tried it with hypercars. I also tried making wheelie cars with, like, a hypercar or whatever, and it didn't really work. I also tried it with the monster trucks, the jelly suspension, and it didn't really work as well. For some reason, it doesn't work as well with the monster truck. Maybe because they're so big and heavy that it just doesn't really work that way. So I tried it with the hypercars, setting the suspension to the softest settings. Nothing really interesting happened. The drag cars, I didn't bother because they're not really designed for wheelie cars. Drift cars, I think, would have the same exact effect, except they'd just be extremely undrivable compared to the other cars. This, like I said, I tried. It didn't really work because it's rear-wheel drive, and yeah. I tried it on a bunch of other cars as well, but for the most part, this Civic has the biggest effect, since it's front engine and front wheel drive. So I'll show it to you again. Unless I don't stall out. So yeah, in general, let me show you again with the tuning. In general, all you really need to do is set aero all the way to the set aero basically so that it's all the way on the front. Set the brake balance so that it's all the way on the front, and then set all the suspension and camber and arb stuff all the way to its lowest settings, which makes it as soft as possible. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Hope this kind of inspired you guys to do a little bit of weird stuff with tuning in the game, since you can do fun stuff like this with the tuning. I mean, it's kind of cool, but it's also kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter since it's just a game, really. But this car actually works better with ABS off. It does bigger wheelies with ABS off. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Catch you guys in the next one. While my car is bouncing around, like, yeah, there's weird stuff going on in its back seat. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.